This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today is going to be another show talking about quantum healing and the work of the AIM program, as well as the work of the Natural Law Party. Interestingly, these two things seem very different, and in ways they are. But in another profound way, underlyingly, they're very much connected. So I'll be speaking to that in a little while. First of all, you have heard me, those of you who watch with any kind of regularity, talk about the AIM program. You have seen me interview Stephen Lewis, the author of this book, Sanctuary, The Path to Consciousness, over the past several months, actually, since I first met him in November. I have been working closely with him in promulgating, promoting the work of AIM, the AIM program, letting people know near and far about its operation and the healing, the energetic balancing that is taking place in people's lives as a result of it. So, because I am bringing Stephen Lewis back to New York yet again for another visit on May 5th, Friday evening, again at the Shelburne Hotel at 7 o'clock. It's a free talk. All are invited. I wanted to take this opportunity to speak again to those of you who may not have had a chance to find out anything about this profound healing program, this healing system, so you can know more about it for yourselves. Why am I so preoccupied with it? Well, I am, because it is a system that has proven to work. It is a system that can and is designed to offer healing to literally millions and millions of people, and it is not practitioner sensitive or practitioner related for that matter. I, in my years as a psychotherapist and acupuncturist, and as a host and producer of this show, A Better World, have met scores of healers, many wonderful people actually, people who do Reiki, people who practice acupuncture, homeopathy, people who do hands-on healing, faith healing, you name it. All kinds of healing, radionics, and they often get and claim quite excellent results. But the overall impression that I have gotten is that relative to what I have now come across, the AIM program, the results aren't as consistent and reliable as what Stephen Lewis, the founder of the AIM program, has been able to provide. It's because of that and a series of other factors that I have come to embrace the work of the AIM program. One of them, by the way, has to do with its broad-based attractiveness. It does not require a person sitting in a room with another person, which is a geographical, you could say, limitation or constraint. It is done remotely by way of photograph. This is based on the holographic principle, which is part and parcel of our understanding today of quantum physics. Now, quantum physics is a very elevated aspect or form or graduated level of physics, if you will, that actually very few people have tuned to. Many of the people who have tuned to it are people in the arts and people in the healing world, because they understand the nature of this physics intuitively, intimately, inside their own body, inside their own heart. There is a kind of common sense that occurs to people of this kind of higher tuned nature, so that the understandings of, if not the mathematics, of quantum physics occurs, you could almost say, organically. Now, one of the great founders of quantum physics, Niels Bohr, said, if I quote him correctly, "Those who first come across quantum physics, if they are not shocked, do not understand it." And it's true. It's a shock to the system. It's an entire paradigm shift. It's a very different way of regarding the universe. And one infers entirely different relationships between things, and even infers a different understanding of what are things when one contemplates the wisdom of quantum physics. And wouldn't you know it, this particular system that I myself have endorsed and now support and promote is based on this new paradigm of thinking and experiencing when one contemplates it, quantum physics. So the cookie crumbles. The fact is that society will catch up and catch on over time, and probably not too great an amount of time, to the understandings of, the reality of quantum thinking. So it's in that light that I wanted to speak with you and present to you again the profound work of the AIM program, as well, of course, as to invite you to the lecture taking place this upcoming May 5th at 7 o'clock at the Shelburne Hotel at 303 Lexington Avenue. It's a free talk in the Great Grand Ballroom, and Stephen Lewis will be doing a talk and a demonstration of this work. I want to just say, by way of introduction of this idea, that while it appears to be new, there are many very interesting antecedents to the current thinking on the subject of quantum physics. And you may scratch your head, but many of these antecedents, historical, are from the world's great religions and even mystical teachings. If you go back to ancient India, ancient Tibet, and ancient China, you will in each place find texts that describe phenomena. This, of course, ancient Japan as well, where we have Zen. When you go back to the texts, the Upanishads, the Tao Te Ching, the Buddhist sutras, you will find understandings that are very much akin to what the quantum physicists are currently saying about matter and the dissolute nature of matter, that nothing is solid, everything is in motion, that the only thing constant in life is change itself. All of these basic tenets of ancient spiritual and religious teachings are now being corroborated through the analysis under microscopes, through telescopes, through abstract mathematical thinking that our current highest level scientists are now arriving at. And of course, perhaps one of the first books that began to draw the parallels between these two seemingly disparate, seemingly separate bodies of intellectual and philosophical pursuit is the work of Fritjof Capra in the Tao of Physics. In this book, it interplays the writings of an ancient spiritual text with the writings of a 20th century quantum physicist. And lo, you can hardly tell the difference. This is what we're dealing with. So it's as though the things that we know deepest in our guts are beginning to come to the fore of science. Since science is one of our current main religions, so be it. Let's use it to show how the truth has manifest over time in places that you might not think scientific understanding was present. However, let me remind you that the ancient Indians had an atomic theory. Now, how did they get that? Well, they had their ways through meditation, reflection, analysis, observation. Guess what? Just like today, except they were able to do this back then. Now, we think that we invented it, but we didn't. It's been around. In the same way, the understanding of nature and the nature of things and the nature of us and the nature of energy has been articulated long ago, and those thoughtful people today are seeing the same thing. Even having nothing to do with the ancient teachings, they came upon these discoveries themselves. Now, along with Stephen Lewis, and beyond Stephen Lewis's work, is the work of, let me share with you, of Valerie Hunt. Dr. Valerie Hunt is a former professor at Columbia University, current professor at UCLA. She has a world-renowned reputation as a scientist and an investigator into healing phenomena and understanding vibrational patterns and fields. She has been the first person really to measure fields around a healer, what we refer to as auras, and she's been able to quantify the results of sending energy from one's hands into another human being, or into a plant, or a pet for that matter. So here is the work of an entirely independent scientist that is marching to the same music. Along the same line, I will show you the work of an MD, Dr. Richard Gerber, who wrote this book, and people in the field are familiar with it, and those of you who are not, do take a look. Vibrational Medicine by Richard Gerber, who, by the way, supports and endorses Stephen Lewis's work in the AIM program, and speaks very highly of it, as a matter of fact, and recognizes it as the cutting edge in what's happening in the healing front. So what I'm showing you is that there is a growing body of literature that endorses, supports, corroborates, and advances the thinking of the use of frequencies, vibrations, for healing. It's actually not new. But what Stephen Lewis has managed to do is make very specific innovations that has taken the entire world of energetic balancing to another level. And one of those levels is our ability to heal a nation, to heal a planet, not just those people who happen to be able to find a good healer, or a good doctor for that matter, and get the healing that they need, or get a cure in the case of a doctor. I'm talking about a much larger impact that we can make on society. A society that is just rife with pollutants. Our water, our air, our soil depleted from minerals. We are living on things like cheesecake. This is no longer healthy. We're breathing air that pollutes our lungs with almost every breath. We're in trouble. The signs are visible. The statistics and the science shows that it's palpable, and several scientific organizations for the past 25 to 35 years have been warning us. And they come from MIT, they come from Harvard, they come from Stanford, they come from some of the leading scientific universities, academic circles around, saying, be warned, we are on a collision course with our future. The air, the water is highly polluted. Species are dying at alarming rates. Our oceans are getting polluted, these vast bodies of water. And we must, as a collective, change the course of our economic and political policies so that we can create sustainable lifestyles. That this country consumes some 40% of the world's resources, when we only have a small, 5% of the overall population, is nothing short of disgraceful. And yet we as a collective body don't reflect on this. It is time that we begin to really examine ourselves and pull in our belts and offer what we can to ameliorate the situation. In this light, I am playing the role of announcing as best I can to as many people as I can the profound and wonderful work of Stephen Lewis, the founder of the AIM program, the founder of EMC Squared, of course an obvious homage to Albert Einstein, one of his mentors, not in the physical, but nonetheless, no less real. Perhaps not an irrelevant point. So please know that what is going on these days with this idea of quantum healing is the wave of the future. On first glance, it may not look possible. You may shrug your shoulders and say, impossible. But I remind you only that the idea of clinking about in space in some kind of metal box, such as a rocket or an airplane, really looked improbable, if not impossible too, before it actually happened. No one of us understands aerodynamics. We don't know the math, we don't know the science. But at a certain point, we're willing to take the risk of getting into that airplane, strapping ourselves in, and taking off. So, in the same way, I invite you to be, perhaps at this point, a pioneer, but not for long. To be a pioneer and step forward into a healing domain that will be taking over the country in not too long. Just so you know, relatively recently I had the great pleasure and honor of interviewing Wayne Dyer. I gave him the book Sanctuary, The Path to Consciousness, which he read immediately, and he said to me later, Mitch, I never have the time to read the books that are given to me. I'm given probably 1,000 books a month, he said to me. And you know where they go? In the closet, if I don't give them away. I have no time to read. I hardly have time to write my own books. He said, but it happened that when I came to your place, I didn't have a book in my hand. I was flying somewhere. I opened the book and I devoured it. He said, I gave it to my wife. She read it in a night. She called me afterwards. And before you know it, Wayne and Marcy Dyer, just two lovely, special people, now get on an intuitive and fundamental level the wisdom involved in this quantum healing program, this energy balancing program, and want to work with me and have already begun working along with me to promote this to the world. This is very powerful. And they are speaking to their friends, who of course are people such as Deepak Chopra, Ram Dass, and others, of course. So the word is getting out. For your information, around the time that Steve Lewis will be in New York, around May 5th at the Shelburne Hotel, if you haven't made note of it yet, I have, through a business associate of mine, the opportunity to introduce Steve to Mr. Bill Bradley, former presidential candidate for this country. And Bill is someone that Steve has regarded very highly as one of the few rational and heartfelt men in the domain of politics, and wants to speak with him about what he sees as a precipitously low life force which keeps showing up in people in this country, including in children. And he feels a call, an obligation to let people of influence know about this so we can add some corrections to the system immediately before the immune function of people all over this country just drops to an all-time low. This is very serious business. Along the same line, soon the presidential candidate of the Natural Law Party, Dr. John Hagelin, also it happens a quantum physicist, will be on my show again for the 4th time. And he too will be meeting with Steve Lewis. I'm arranging for this meeting because John needs to know, and the Natural Law Party needs to include something of this sort as part of their healing and prevention program. So this is the kind of thing that is taking place across the world. I won't go into the other things that are developing in other parts like Mexico all the way to New Zealand, and there are things that are developing, thank God. But it's all based on one thing, and that is a system that actually works. By shifting the energy field of a human being, or any sentient being for that matter, changes occur in the physical and emotional well-being of that being. And that fundamentally is what this is about. Bringing things up and detoxifying, freeing oneself, releasing the old patterns, the hereditary factors toward disease. These are being released. The frequencies are being released, which allows the individual to stand up straight and claim their own selves in a way that in this kind of comprehensive way wasn't exactly possible. You could say that a person is being faced with positive vibrations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when they are on the AIM program. And people with all kinds of problems, even, yes, the most serious, are finding themselves getting cleared up. People who have had literally weeks to live, according to the doctors, are coming back and becoming symptom-free and are regaining their lives, literally from the jaws of death. This is what is going on. It's awesome. It's miraculous. No one fully understands how it operates, but it does. And in terms of understanding more about how it operates, I would refer you to yet another book written by Professor Emeritus at Stanford University, Dr. William Tiller, that a friend of mine recently referred me to, who wrote a book called Science and Human Transformation. And in it, Dr. Tiller outlines the science behind the use of a photograph for healing and shifting frequencies in a human being, based again on the holographic principle of quantum physics. The proof is in the pudding. I spoke to people across the country over the past several months who are reporting to me these profound changes. And there's just no denying it. Whether we understand it or not, whether we like it or not, whether we can explain it or not, is actually not the point. We sure can explain electricity. Very few people can, if any, but that doesn't preclude our using it. In the same way, I ask that you come and learn and listen, get educated, and bring yourself to another level. It's actually a transformation of consciousness which occurs when one is in the presence of this kind of thought process. Come, and the world is turning in that direction anyway. As the last line in Sanctuary, the Path to Consciousness quotes Bob Dylan, "The times, they are a-changin'." So come with us, join in the spirit of change, of upliftment, of elevation, and getting a new perspective on what is possible. As was, I believe, someone Steve quotes often, St. Augustine, miracles do not happen in opposition to nature. They happen in opposition to what we know of nature. If we just digest this, we will begin to elevate our own understanding of nature. Now, talking about nature, the other subject for today that I put on the table before was the Natural Law Party. Now, the Natural Law Party is a party, third party, of course, independent party, of course, that is headed up by Dr. John Hagelin, a wonderful man who is very bright and deeply caring, and has been running for United States presidency since 1992 with his running mate Mike Tompkins, whose family has been in U.S. politics back several generations, from vice presidents to governors of New York State. We have Tompkins Square Park is named after one of his ancestors. Mike is an historian, a very bright, sharp guy, and these two make quite a pair. They are traveling the country with Neil Donald Walsh, many of whom you know as the author of Conversations with God, and they are speaking about spirituality in politics. And this is a place where we need spirituality probably more than anywhere, because politics governs. It governs where money is allocated. It governs the way we think. It governs the way we all behave as a collective. It creates, in a sense, what is possible and what is not possible for us as a nation, in leading all nations, if you will, or not. So there is this marriage that needs to take place between these two otherwise incredibly disparate and alienated areas. Spirituality, which tends to live in its own box, and politics, which lives in its own corrupt box. It's really time to re-empower our political scene with the wisdom inherent in a spiritual life. A spiritual life, I don't have to tell you, originates in the heart. And when the heart is open and the heart is listening, anything is possible. In the same way, we are bringing forth a kind of healing that is not found elsewhere. It's a spiritual technology. One cannot divorce healing from spirituality. It's not possible. You can trace the root of the word heal, and you will ultimately end up at the ancient Greek word for holy and for whole. There's no separation. Hippocrates didn't separate. It's only since pretty much Descartes that there became this conceptual separation. Some would argue that it happened before this, and I understand that argument as well. There's a separation between science and spirit. There is no separation. All there is assistance, complementariness, and corroboration. It's all connected. Why would surgeons pray to God before they go about handling a delicate surgery? It doesn't make sense to the rational thinker. But it does happen every single day of the week. Because fundamentally, we all understand, either in the words of we are children of God, or we are the manifestation of a divine, creative, highly creative force, creative intelligence that has made us all and has made everything. However we conceive it does not matter. What matters is that we embrace, on some level, the openings occurring and the possibilities for a new kind of more enriched life by just looking at things such as the AIM program and the Natural Law Party. Take this into consideration. Take a new, fresh look at what might be possible for our health, our well-being, and even our renewed spiritual climate. I want to thank you all for joining me again today and listening to the subject of the AIM program and the basis it rests upon, which is quantum physics, which is, I assert, in my way of looking, a spiritual enterprise in itself. A beautiful blending and marriage, if you will, of ancient science, ancient spirituality, and current scientific understanding. It can say a lot and do a lot in bringing us into the 21st and the next centuries, together as one humanity, not all separate, but understanding the nature of life together, the Tao, and bring us closer and closer together. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you on Friday night, May 5th, at the Shelburne Hotel for a free talk. You're all welcome.